Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, I wanted to talk about female privilege in the workforce because I don't think a lot of women, especially on LinkedIn, acknowledge this. A very important person in my life was complaining about how he got his hours cut and his hours were given to a new employee who happened to be a younger woman and is attractive, and the manager is a male, and he feels that the boss is kind of having, even though the boss is married, he's showing favoritism to this rookie because it's an attractive or semi-attractive woman and the boss is flirting with her. Because he was saying how he has more experience, he has seniority, and his two brothers also work there, so it's uncomfortable, and he works hard and he's never missed a day, and he shows up, and he's wondering, oh, does the boss not like me anymore? I could tell it weighed heavily upon him, where he felt like he actually wants to quit the job because it was just so insulting seeing your hours cut when you have a family to feed in favor of the boss's little lust object, his maybe potential new work wife. And I don't think a lot of women want to acknowledge, because they're always complaining about the fake, non-existent wage gap, women this, women that, but they never acknowledge how women's sex appeal, their beauty, can secure them in a job because they're able to manipulate the boss's horniness, the boss's desires, visually, even without touching them. And I started thinking about how, even in my own life, I could see some favoritism, like when I was 19 and 20, that certain bosses would have to me. And you can kind of see in their eyes what they're thinking. They never did anything, some of them, but you can feel there's like a power dynamic there. Whereas an older male employee doesn't really have that leverage to manipulate or enforce, dominate, exude power, allureness, something along that nature, if you catch my drift, over the opposite gender, right? Or the same gender. So, a lot of people get affected by a woman's beauty in ways the woman doesn't realize. How women can have a certain position of privilege when it comes to their looks and how they're able to get a job and secure hours because the boss maybe doesn't have good control over reason. I think a good boss would make the rookie, regardless of her gender, their gender, whatever, and their beauty, they'd make them work and earn that. But when you look at work dynamics and how women can get more because of their beauty, and how men, even if they're a harder worker, can be pushed aside so the boss has some eye candy while he's at work, really just goes to show how a lot don't talk about that. Women are always saying in the workforce, especially feminist liberal atheists, that men are evil, toxic masculinity. They don't like cis men, heterosexual men. Yet, when it comes to the workforce, some of them are protected or secure hours because of their beauty, regardless of if the boss is married or not, right? And I think if we all sit back and examine how many times a beautiful girl was able to make a worker do something because she had some type of power over the individual, we would begin to see that. I know I have seen it many, many times. A overweight woman who's a bit snarky can't get away with as much as like a busty diva. It's just something that I've observed. And it's just something within the female nature and just something within our reality that is the dynamic we have to deal with. But I just felt really bad for this person because you can see they're at like a crossroads in their life where they put a lot into this job, got a good Christmas bonus. They work hard to make sure that they do their job effectively. And they were pushed aside because a young woman with an attractive body came in, and the boss, who is a bit gluttonous and hedonistic, wanted it. And she's got less experience. But the flirtation that happens, the charisma, that is like a caressing energy upon the male ego that is a tool and a weapon of finance and survival. It's just something that women can do. So it is just sad. It makes me think about how many good men deserve more, and because of a female who just happens to be gifted with beauty, can just come in and make it harder for that individual to feed their family because the boss has a bit of a problem lowering his gaze and just looking at raw skill. And so if you know anybody like that, you never know if one of your friends will come home to you and give you a talk about their day, right? Or someone will talk to you while you are, I don't know, doing something. Who knows when someone will just decide to get advice from you or open up to you about a certain event in their life. But if they ever do, it's just something to think about. And if you are a boss that is a man, try your best to give it to the one who's earned it. A sort of meritocracy. Not to the one who is able to finesse you and manipulate you with their beauty. I know it can sound pretty harsh. Certain feminists will say, how dare you say it's because of beauty and not her intellect? I think if we all take a step back and we think as women, how many times we've seen that example of a beautiful woman getting an edge on a man in a workplace, we would become quite astute. Even I would see this, like I've said in the past, way back, like about 2 or 3 years ago. Older women often get pushed aside for the younger women. I'm not going to say it's ageism. Rather, if you have a male manager who's 25 to 45, big gap there, and there's a 55-year-old woman who wants hours, but then there's a nice looking 21-year-old who's peaceful to look at, there is that temptation that many men face is to hire the beauty because you're going to be spending a lot of hours with them and they're sort of a pleasing thing to the eye. And it's almost like this bias comes out, which is normal to the human nature where beauty has an influence over our choices. But I think we should fight against that. It's another thing I like about the niqab and the hijab and the jilbab and the burqa, you name it, is it levels the playing field and you deal with just an individual. The beauty is not allowed to swarm you and trap you and finesse you and finagle you as much as someone who has all the adornment out. It's really fascinating. You don't hear that talked about, female beauty in the workplace, and how men who are better than those women suffer simply because the woman is beautiful and can get it. Because you'll see men simp for women in the workplace, do things for her, let her bend the rules more. You see a lot of leeway given to really pretty women, right? They don't get yelled at as hard as an older woman or a man. It's fascinating. So I was just thinking about sharing that with you and how we can all do better if we're a boss, and if we're ever asked to give advice about who needs a promotion or whose hours should be cut, it should be based upon work history and not desires. It should be totally about how well they fulfill the position and not fulfilling one's eye candy needs. It's interesting to think about nonetheless. Let me know what you think. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. A lot of cool posts on there, and it's a good community. Hope to see you there.